Films in Focus with David Sterritt is underwritten by The Movie House, your destination for first-run Hollywood and independent movies, and a digital portal to the Met Opera, National Theater Live, and special events worldwide in Millerton, New York, and on the web, themoviehouse.net.
David Sterritt is the editor-in-chief of the Quarterly Review of Film and Video, contributing writer at Cineast, film professor at the Maryland Institute College of Art, Robin Hood Radio's very own critic. He joins us weekly. The films are Emma, Swallow, and St. Francis, and I have it on good authority that there is a theme.
There is a theme this week. Instead of our frequent theme of 3 films or 2 films with absolutely nothing in common, this week we have 3 films which are all about women. And as I am so fond of saying, it is always so encouraging to see films about women, because even though the movie industry in America and I guess other places is getting better in this regard, it's no longer the case that pretty much every single movie that we see is about men and aimed at men. It is so encouraging to see that movies are being made, I think, with some increasing frequency that deal with women. And today we have 3 such films. And the first one is based on a sort of a famous woman, a famous fictional woman, as Emma, which is based on the novel by Jane Austen. And it has been made into a film quite a number of times before. I'll mention what I still think is almost certainly the best version, not that it's a masterpiece, but the best version, I think, was way back in 1995, Clueless, the movie by Amy Heckerling, which transformed or transmogrified Emma into a very, very modern story starring Alicia Silverstone about teens in high school. And then the following year, there was a version which I didn't like so much with Gwyneth Paltrow. But now we have yet another version of the Jane Austen novel, and it's a very nice movie. The thing is, it utterly failed to excite me. But maybe I'll get back to that in a moment. First of all, about the movie itself. It stars Anya Taylor-Joy as Emma Woodhouse. And this is a very close adaptation of the Jane Austen novel. So as in the novel, she is a very beautiful and a very clever and a very well-meaning young woman who lives with her sort of crotchety old father. And she generally sort of thinks a little bit too much of herself. And the main storyline of the tale is that she gets involved in the life of a young friend of hers named Harriet Smith. Harriet Smith is the natural child, that is to say the illegitimate child, she eventually finds out, of a merchant. And because of this, way back then in the 19th century, because of her illegitimate status, she has no social standing, and it's not clear that she's ever going to be able to land a great match as a marriage. And she herself is very, very taken with a young farmer in the neighborhood. But Emma decides that this is not a good enough match for her friend Harriet. She decides to meddle in Harriet's affairs and arrange for Harriet to have a better marriage than this young farmer. And of course, everything goes awry. And it turns out that she actually makes her friend's life quite a bit more complicated and quite a bit less happy, until eventually the movie wends its way to a happy ending, as does the novel itself. Things work out satisfactorily. So the good thing about the movie Emma is that, which, by the way, was written by Eleanor Catton and is directed by Autumn de Wilde. The good thing about it is that it is a very, very beautifully done movie. Everything in it is beautiful. The characters are beautiful. The settings are beautiful. The nature and the countryside outside is beautiful. The unfortunate thing about this movie is that it's beautiful. Everything is too darn beautiful. Everything is too darn ideal. Now, of course, unfortunate things happen to characters in the course of the story, but the whole thing just looks constantly posed to me. Every shot looks like it was made up to create a beautiful composition. And after a while, in fact, pretty soon, this just gets kind of boring. And I just found the movie to be without that kind of life, that kind of spontaneity, that kind of in-the-moment energy that a really, really good movie has. Now, I have to say, Anya Taylor-Joy is quite lovely as Emma Woodhouse. Mia Goth is quite wonderful as Harriet Smith, and she has that sort of very nice look of being not quite so much pretty as she is cute, and that's well done. And I want to single out Bill Nighy, who's a wonderful actor who plays old Mr. Woodhouse. And even though I really like Bill Nighy, I don't think he quite pulls it off in this movie of Emma. In the novel, which I reread recently, Mr. Woodhouse, he's kind of a hypochondriac, and he's always worried that people are going to be sitting in a draft. And if there's a snowflake in the area, he feels that the whole countryside should be shut down because it's too dangerous to travel. And that's all kind of amusing in the novel. And Bill Nighy plays him as practically a paranoid who is just way over the top. Too much. So in a way, the problem with this movie is that there's too much of the good things and there's too much of the bad things. I enjoyed watching Anya Taylor-Joy. I enjoyed watching Mia Goth and Bill Nighy and the various other people who play the very nice characters in this movie. But again, I felt that the whole thing was just a little bit too italicized for my taste. It's a little bit too pretty, a little bit too nice, a little bit too cute, a little bit too clever. And I would have liked a movie with a bit more spontaneity. That said, anybody who really enjoys a well-mounted production of a classic novel transmogrified into film will probably have a good time with Emma. It's been getting very good reviews, and I liked it. I just couldn't bring myself to love it. Our next movie, Swallow, was written and directed by Carlo Mirabella Davis, and it is a very different kind of movie from Emma, and a very strange movie, and a very engrossing movie, and a good time watching it. I'm not going to say too much about the story of it. I got to say a little bit, but one of the things I enjoyed about it was really not knowing what was going to happen next. So I'm just going. It's not a suspense movie, but that was a big part of the pleasure of the film for me. So I got to say a little bit about it, but I won't reveal too much about what happens after the opening scenes. Swallow is about a young woman named Hunter. And she is very well played by Haley Bennett. And she is married to a handsome but really obnoxious young professional named Richie, played by Austin Stowell. And Richie has a lot of money. And he clearly has married Hunter because she's real pretty, and because they apparently have pretty great sex. And that appears to be about it. He appears to regard his wife, Hunter, as as much his possession as his gorgeous house and all the gorgeous furnishings in it and so forth and so on. All of which, by the way, is gorgeous but very sterile. There is no real happiness in this household, although there's obviously a lot of luxury. So anyway, Richie clearly regards his wife as in the cliche that we have nowadays, as a trophy, like his money, like his house, and so forth. And unfortunately, his parents, who are pretty important characters in the film, seem to regard her pretty much the same way. They're their son Richie's wonderful trophy. Now, where does this leave Hunter, our main character? It leaves her very unhappy, very unfulfilled. Nobody really listens to her. Nobody really pays attention to her. Nobody has any deep affection for her. And one day she was reading a self-help book, and it advises a young woman. And by the way, she's pregnant. She finds out that she's pregnant, which makes everybody very happy, including her. And she's reading in this self-help book that a way you can make your life more fulfilling is to do something unexpected. Do something that's really out of the ordinary, that just hits you in the spur of the moment. And so she does exactly that. And the strange thing that she does it on an impulse is to swallow a marble. Well, that pretty much sets the story of the film in motion. She swallows the marble. Eventually, she digests and passes and retrieves the marble. And this starts her on a pattern of very strange behavior. The movie is called Swallow. She turns out to be a swallower. She starts swallowing other objects, things less safe to swallow than a marble, and it turns into a real pathology with her. Now, it isn't too long before her husband Richie finds out that his trophy wife has this very serious psychological condition which is starting to cause real damage to her body, and she is pregnant with their child. So he decides something has to be done about this, and his parents decide to help. And what results in this is a live-in helper and a psychiatrist and all various efforts to help her, not many of which do much good, at least in the short term. And that is really what the story of this movie is. What is going to happen to this beautiful, privileged young woman in this very luxurious, quite lovely marriage, which is lovely in all respects, except there is no real love in it for her. What is going to happen to her? And as the movie proceeds, things come out about her early life, things come out about her childhood, things come out about even the circumstances of her parenting, which all contribute to the drama of the movie. Now, I said the movie is strange, and it is strange. It's a strange subject, a young woman who swallows objects. But it's also a movie which has a whole lot of real psychological realism to it, I think. We find out a lot about things about her which really, really ring true. And just following the course of this and developing our sympathy with Hunter, I just found it a completely engrossing movie. I was utterly wrapped up in it, up until the very end. In about the last maybe 5 minutes or so, the movie turns, I found, rather pat and simplistic and wraps things up in a way which is a bit too easy. But up until you get to that point, the movie has a lot of drama. And really, I said it's not a suspense movie, but it has a lot of suspense. And I really had a good time watching it. And I have to say that as the main character, Haley Bennett gives a wonderful, wonderful performance. I was also pleased, by the way, to see in a small role near the end of the movie, but a very important role, Dennis O'Hare, who I still remember mainly from my all-time favorite TV series, 6 Feet Under. It's nice to see him in. And the parents, Hunter's parents, Richie's parents are played very, very nicely by Elizabeth Marvel and David Rasky. So a very, very good movie, and I really recommend it. It's a little kind of an indie production, and the kind of thing that you might have to sort of seek out. But if you're interested in a really penetrating and highly unusual psychological drama about a young woman caught in an altogether too familiar bind, Swallow is really, it's really worth seeing. Our final movie today, St. Francis, was directed by Alex Thompson from a script written by Kelly O'Sullivan, who also plays the leading role. And in this case, we have a young woman, another movie about a woman, and this is maybe the best, overall best realized of the three and most accessible of the three films I'm talking about today. Emma's a lovely period piece, but it is a period piece. Swallow is a very strange and engrossing drama, but it is strange. Here we have a movie which is a little bit more conventional, but also offbeat in any number of ways. Our main character, played by Kelly O'Sullivan, who wrote the film, is named Bridget, and she is in her middle 30s, and she is a server. She would always hoped that she would somehow become a poet, become a writer, but that hasn't happened, and she isn't really clear where her life is going. At the very, very beginning of the movie, she meets a young man at a party. He also is a server, and they go back and they have sex, and she develops just sort of a mild friendship with this young man, and then it turns out that she is pregnant. So what's going to happen? She is only a server, and she is a server who has not quite realized the small goals that she had for herself in life, and now she is pregnant. And this young man, he's a very nice guy, and he's totally in this with her, but he's not exactly somebody she sees herself having a future with. He's quite a few years younger than her. He also is just a server, and at one point he says, well, we're in a relationship, and she says, no, we're not. So it's really not clear what's going to happen with her. She's not very happy about her situation. Well, the most important thing that she decides about all this is that she does decide to have an abortion. And this is one of the most interesting things about the movie St. Francis, is that she has the abortion and her feelings about it are complicated, but not guilty. She realizes this is something she has to do. And that, I think, is just a fascinating thing, and that has a lot to do with the movie's politics. But another thing happens which explains the title of the movie, St. Francis. She takes a job. She takes a job that is a little bit more to her liking than being a server. She becomes a nanny to a 6-year-old girl, and that is the St. Francis of the title. Francis spelled with a C-E-S. She is the Saint, and she's not a saint. She's a really nice little girl who gets into trouble and does naughty things and does nice things. But to our main character, Bridget, she is something of a saint because she is just such a joy to be with, and it's such a joy for her to have this job, which is really meaningful. Now, another fascinating aspect of this movie is that the little girl, Frances, her parents are a lesbian couple. And they are really, really nice, smart people who are having trouble in their marriage, in their relationship, in their partnership. And because she is now the nanny to their little girl, Bridget gets involved with that as well. So we have here a movie which deals with all kinds of issues of our time, which, strange to say, are controversial. We have a main character who has an abortion without feeling guilty about it, even though that's a very important part of the movie's plot. She is working for a same-sex couple who have a little girl and who then have a newborn, which is why they need a nanny for 6-year-old Bridget. And these things are handled with such taste and tact in the movie. They are just the way life is in modern-day America. And there is no big fuss made about any of these things, but nor are the problems that are involved. Problems, for example, that the same-sex couple have with prejudice. Problems that the same-sex couple have with people just regarding them as normal parents who are normally bringing up a little girl and now an infant. Another theme of the movie is postpartum depression, which is something that is handled, again, with great taste and tact and seriousness in the movie. So St. Francis is a movie that deals with all of these sort of hot-button issues, and it has all these political dimensions, such as the abortion, such as the same-sex marriage, but it treats them all as just normal, everyday parts of the kinds of lives that the people around us live every day in America. It's a beautifully acted movie. It's a beautifully handled movie. It's not a masterpiece, but it's a film which really has a lot to say about women in today's American society, and I highly recommend it. And so that is my very female-centric story this week, Jill.
For which we thank you as ever, David Sterritt, Films in Focus, the films Emma, Swallow, and St. Francis.